Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining. I'm going to go through and document how I built out my Active Directory set for practicing my OSCP lab exam. Specifically, as you can see here, we're sitting on our Kali box, freshly imaged, and I'm not going to cover Kali because there's plenty of documentation on how to install Kali. But we're going to have it connect through OpenVPN to an OpenVPN server. I'm not going to cover that. It's relatively straightforward, but if there is enough, requests, maybe I'll show that too as an addendum. But ultimately, after we are VPN'd in, we're going to have access to the outside subnet, and what I'm going to walk through now is building out two Windows workstations, Windows 10 specifically, MS01 and MS02, and our Active Directory domain controller, which will be server 2016 or 2019, 2019 I believe, and it's going to be on the inside subnet. So without further ado, I do want to call out, I am building this out. Let me flip back over. I run my Kali box locally on my machine as a virtual machine, just like I would on the lab exam. And then what I'm doing is I'm actually running the OpenVPN server, MS01, MS02, and DC01 all on a Intel NUC that is running ESXi. And specifically it's ESXi 6.7, but it doesn't really matter what version, and doesn't really matter what kind of hardware you're running it on. I just like ESXi as it allows me to centrally manage and control all of this stuff, and it's not going to take up any of the resources on my box. They can be all allocated and dedicated to my Kali machine. So if we go over here and look at our virtual machines and just filter on OSCP, you can see I've already got my OpenVPN box running. Now we're going to start with, we'll start with building out about MS01. It's going to be the most heavy duty of the machines. So we'll create a new virtual machine, and if you're already familiar and comfortable with setting up a VM and installing Windows, then you can skip past all this. But for anyone that's not familiar, we're going to cover it briefly. So we'll call this OSCP-MS01 Windows 10 64-bit. Stick it on an SSD drive. We'll give you two processors, 4 gigs, 32 gigs of hard drive space, but we're going to thin provision that because I'm stingy. And our network interface 1 is going to be on the outside. And I like to change it and use VMX Net 3, a little bit more efficient. We need to add a second network adapter though, because this is going to be a dual homed machine, right? You can see here MS01 is going to have an interface on the outside subnet and another interface on the inside subnet. So first interface will be outside, second interface will be inside. Same thing, let's make that a VMX Net 3. And then now of course we need to actually have an ISO image to install from, so let's pick Windows 10. Specifically I'm picking that build, but generally speaking it doesn't matter what build you use, it's just Windows 10. And the rest of this is fine. Nice summary. That finishes. We'll go ahead and kick it off. Open up the console. And reboot. Yes, let's boot from the CD. Let's go ahead and make this full screen. Next, install now. I do not have a product key. We're just going to run on trial licenses. Let's do Windows 10 Pro. I do accept the terms. I'll just do custom install and take up the whole hard drive space. And we'll go ahead and let that install, and I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and we'll resume once it finishes the install. And here we can see it finished the install, and it's going to reboot. Okay, now this is pretty boring standard. We live in the US, well, at least that's where we are. Yep, US keyboard, skip the layout. No, I don't have internet. Continue with limited setup. I'll just use delete me as a username with no password, so it automatically logs in, and I remember to delete that account and profile before we're done. We're going to decline everything because it just reduces the amount of tracking and data and requests that Windows makes. And now we wait for the user profile to finish being created. Okay, we have gotten to our desktop. So first and foremost, let's do a couple basics like installing VMware tools or VM tools. So install VMware tools, yes please. We'll open up this PC and we'll see it mounts the VM tools on the CD drive here. And while it's doing that, let's go ahead and change the computer name. MS01. Yep. No, we'll reboot later. And there's our VM tools. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Install. Alright, finish, and before it does that, let's go ahead and change display. For our sake, for recording, let's make that 150%. Boom, it's all big again. And we'll reboot. Okay, so now that we're back up, let's start with our network settings. So let's go to change adapter options. Let's see, we've got two adapters. Start with Ethernet 1. Let's check out the status to verify we're looking at the right one. So A2 3 echo, alpha 2 3 echo. If we go here, take a look, outside interface is alpha 2 3 echo. So that looks good. So let's go ahead and go to properties and let's disable IPv6, edit v4, and this will be the 192.168.100.201/24. We don't need any other settings. And just to confirm, yep, that is the outside 192.168.100.201. Next inside interface is going to be 10.10.1.201. So we'll go to properties, disable v6, double click v4, 10.10.1.201, 255.255.255. If you can type. And we don't need a gateway, but we are going to use our Active Directory domain controller as our DNS server once it's up. So this will be 10.10.1.200. This guy. So we'll go ahead and say OK and OK. And our network settings are all set. Now what we can do is let's do some basic settings. So system settings. This, to take advantage of the vulnerable software, we're going to need to disable the screensaver and disable sleep mode. Keep this thing on. And then we're going to need to play with the security settings. We need to do this on all of them, and that is to disable the tamper protection. So Windows security, virus threat protection, and manage settings, and then we go down here to tamper protection and turn that off because we are going to have that tampered with. Close and close. And now what we need to do is add a route. Let's go ahead and open up our command prompt as admin to our VPN subnet so that way it's accessible. So to do that, let's make sure we can ping our open VPN server. It's going to be 100.199. 192, 168, 100, 199. Hooray, it's there. So now let's take a look at our route table. We have no persistent routes, and we have no routes to the 172.16.11 subnet, which is our VPN subnet here. So to get there, we need to go through OpenVPN server. So let's add that route. So it's going to be route add 72.16.11.0 mask 255.255.0, and it's going to be available through or from 192.168, 100, 199, and we want to make this a persistent route, so we want to add a /p. It tells us OK, and now we can do route print. Sure enough, there's our persistent route, 172.16.11 through 100, 199. All right, that looks good. So at this point, we are ready. Oh, we need to create a local user. So a couple ways to do that, but let's just right click on this PC, say manage, open up our computer management, local users, and let's create a new user called Lucy. And let's make the password something easy. It doesn't really matter. So password 123, and password never expires. Okay, Lucy's just going to be our local user, limited privilege, low privilege user. All right, and now we're at the point where we're ready to start moving some software over and installing some software on here. So to do that, we're going to use our Kali box to transfer this, because this is not connected to the internet. Let's do that. Oh, we can go ahead and eject this. So a couple things we need. We need some vulnerable software. So from our Kali box that does have internet, there's another interface coming off there you can't see. Let's go ahead and go to exploit DB. And I like to pick on something that is going to have an app. So let's just download the app. Let's filter on, we need a remote exploit. We need something for the Windows platform. And let's just take a look. So we've got some verified. Let's take a look at the second page. So I like this remote mouse 3008 arbitrary remote command execution. So let's pick on that. Let's just download that vulnerable app. And then we are going to need something for privilege escalation. Let's make that something different. So same thing, has app, and I like to let's do something with an unquoted service path. Let's see what pops up here. WiseCare. Okay, WiseCare I believe has a longer path, and we can abuse that. So this one works well. Let's use this guy. We're also going to need a few pieces of software like a web server. So let's download XAMPP. It's an easy one. Go ahead and download that and use that. And we're also going to need auto logon from sysinternals. So let's auto logon. Download. Well, let's pull that down as well. That we're going to need for MS01 and MS02 to have some auto logged on users. Okay. So now let's go ahead and stage those files. We'll go ahead and open up command prompt. Zoom this in a bit. And let's go to the desktop, make a directory called we'll call it AD setup. And in here, let's go ahead and move. Let's see if they're all done. They are. Great. Alright, got it all over here. And now we need to connect. So I'm going to connect to our OpenVPN server, which is 192.168. Actually, from here it would be 10. This is the outside interface that's not on the diagram, how I VPN into it. So that is 199 OSCP, and we're going to download the auto login profile. And there's our OpenVPN profile. Great. Let's go ahead and open up a new instance because we're going to run the OpenVPN and then move it to the background. So actually, let's just go to our downloads. That's going to get deleted anyway. OpenVPN. And here, sure enough, we can see our address that we get added to our tunnel interface is 172.16.11.11. And we'll minimize that. As you can see, that's our 172.16.11.11. So now we should be able to get to MS01. And MS01 should be able to get to us, more importantly. So I like to use Mpacket SMB server just because it makes things easy and it's more Windows native. We'll add SMB to support and we'll call it setup. We'll share this directory. Alright, now that we're staged and we're set to give all those files over, let's go ahead and do that. So to do this, we can just go up here to the address bar, /172.16.11.11, and there's our setup folder. There's our files. We'll copy, and let's not go to downloads, let's go to the C drive, create a new folder called setup, and let's paste them in there. Okay, so now let's go ahead and install some of these. Let's start with XAMPP. That's a hefty one. We don't need all of the pieces in here, so we're just going to install the essentials. Yeah, go ahead. Bypass or disable UAC. It's always good security. Don't need MySQL or FTP or Tomcat or Perl. We can leave phpMyAdmin, that's fine. And next, install into the C drive XAMPP, so not in program files, which is not ideal, but that's fine. Doesn't matter for our purposes here. Now while that's running, let's go ahead and extract auto login or auto logon. Can't say that properly. Don't need to show them. And I'll delete that. And we really only need the auto log on 64 is the ideal one, since everything here is 64-bit. So we'll move that out here. We'll delete that. And this thing's still installing. Alright, looks like it's finishing. This is where we can enable access by poking holes in the firewall. Yes, definitely do that. Otherwise, it's a web server that's only available on the local host. And once this finishes, okay, and no, I don't want to start it. Actually, I'll show you why. You can say no, but if you do say yes, it's going to open up, and you're going to notice that these options are disabled because it didn't open as an admin. So we want to close it, and then right-click it and say More and Run as Admin. Yes, please. And then now you'll see there's a red X. We can click on that and it says, yep, do you want to install this as a service? We do. So now it says a service just for giggles. Let's make sure it runs. Yes, it does. Process ID and ports. And just for giggles, actually, let's actually, no, that's fine. We'll leave this. Never mind. We're not going to touch that. We'll leave it as is. So now that that's all set, we can install the rest of the software. So let's install the remote mouse software. Just double click on that. Yes. Okay. Yes. And it's amazingly simple and easy to install. No, we don't need any instructions. We know what we're doing. And then let's go ahead and install the WiseCare. Yes. And in this case, we're going to actually say custom install. We're going to show one of the reasons why you don't install to non-default or non-program files at locations. By putting it in apps, it's even easier to take advantage of an exploit because it's more open on permissions. We'll go ahead and say install. And sure, you can go ahead and launch it. We're not going to actually do anything with it, but just want to make sure it's there. Okay. That looks good. And then at this point we can delete the WiseCare. We can actually delete XAMPP as well. We don't need that. The remote mouse installer, however, we're going to change the name and make it a little bit more ambiguous. We'll just leave it as this hash here. And then we'll say cut. And we're going to relocate it. We're going to put it up in the web server. It's going to be part of our discovery process. So htdocs, and then we'll create a folder called uploads, which is a word in the common as well as many other word lists that Dirbuster will use, and it'll find it there. So now we know once that file is found, then it'll reveal some data on a vulnerable application that we might be able to take advantage of. And all we're left with is auto logon, which we will configure later. So at this point, we are ready to join this to the domain once the domain has been created. So we'll return back to this once we are ready with the domain controller. Oh, I stand corrected. We have one more thing we need to do, which is actually more of just a reliability thing. Go back to our computer management here. Services, and our, where is it? There we go, our Wise Boot Assistant. So this generally will work just fine if you're on local connectivity. I did notice every once in a while it can be problematic over VPN just for timing. So if we change this from automatic to automatic delayed start, that's been much more reliable and some testing. So we're just going to make that last change to the service. May not be necessary for your environment, but just for reliability and stability, that seems to make things a little bit easier. And now this thing is ready to be joined to the domain. Now that we finished up with MS01, we're ready to build our domain controller. So we have something to join these machines to a domain. So let's go ahead and create a new virtual machine. In this case, we'll call it OSCP-DC01 Windows. And in this case, we'll be doing a Windows Server 2016 or later. Stick it on an SSD again. Same thing, 2 processors, 4 gigs, a little bit more hard drive space, still thin provisioned because Darren is stingy. We're going to change the network adapter to VMXNet3. Still just going to be on the inside though. And we'll choose data store ISO. You can also just mount yours. And then I'm going to pick this image in this build of server 2016. And we'll say next and finish. And then let's go ahead and run this bad boy. Now we'll make this full screen. And similar, you can skip ahead if you want to bypass. You're familiar with installing Windows Server. Otherwise, you'll see we're going to install Server 2019. And we're going to go through the same process that we did with the Windows 10 workstation. So make sure you choose standard eval desktop experience. Otherwise, you're going to be left with the core, which is just basically command shell. Next, custom, take the whole space and go ahead and let it install. We'll return after the reboot, and when it's ready to prompt us, first thing it's going to prompt us for is, of course, credentials. And now we're doing the reboot. Okay, and as promised, here we go. First thing it wants is a domain administrator, well, a server administrator password. So I'm going to go with a Lego theme. So let's use Brickmaster. All right, let's log in. All right, and the first thing we're gonna do is some configuration, like changing that host name to DC01. Restart later, because before we restart, we would like to install some VMware tools as well. Yes, and yes, and yes, and please install it all. And similarly, let's go ahead and change our resolution. Well, let's keep our resolution. Let's change the scale to 150%, easier for visibility for everyone. And yes, let's restart. And now that we're back up, let's go ahead and log in once more. Good old Brickmaster. And can you guess what we're going to do next? If you guessed set some IP settings, you guessed correctly. So let's right click, open network and internet settings, change adapter options, right click in properties, disable IPv6, edit v4, 10.10.1.200/24, and here we're going to set DNS to itself, loopback address. And we're good there. So now what's next? Let's promote this bad boy. Let's give him a job. He needs to do something other than just eat up compute power and electricity. So we're going to choose DC01, the only server we have here. Actually, no, before we do that, it hasn't picked up on the IP change. So just because of that, let's go ahead and restart one more time. Just because from a domain controller standpoint, if you don't have the right IP in there or the right DNS name, that can sometimes hose things. So just for giggles, we're going to reboot one more time. Make sure that it shows the proper IP address. And we'll back up. Okay, now let's go ahead and go add roles and features. Let's try this again. Yep, there we go, 10.10.1.200. That's what I like to see. We're going to add Active Directory domain services. Next, next, next. Restart if needed, which it won't be, but we'll give it the option. Who knows, you might have a different experience. Okay, it finished, configuration required, install succeeded. And sure enough, it tells us we need to promote this server to a domain controller. Well, thank you. I think I'll do just that. We're going to add a new forest called, in this case, OSCP.lab. And it's going to ask us for the directory services restore mode password we want to set it to. I'm just going to use good old Brickmaster as well. Next, here it's going to search for, does anybody have the OSCP NetBIOS domain name? It's going to wait for a response, and then once it does not get a response, it'll say, okay, cool, I'm going to take it. And default paths here are good. Prereq check. And sure enough, we pass. Click install to begin. Thank you. I think I will. And go ahead and let it do the install. And once it's done, it will want to reboot on its own. And we'll pick up where it leaves off with a freshly installed Active Directory domain controller asking us to log on is administrator@oscp.lab. Sure enough, just as promised, it tells us we're going to be rebooting and logging you out. Sure enough, it does just that. And we're up. Let's go ahead and log in as the domain admin with our favorite password. And now one of the things we're going to do is start by creating some users. So we'll go in here to Active Directory users. Actually, you know what? Let's start with group policy. So go to group policy management. There's a couple of basic things we need to fix on our machines as we join them to the domain. So if you're not familiar with group policy, it's just a way of centrally managing some computer and user settings on all your machines. Here's all of our group policy objects. We've only got 2. We're going to go and create a new one, link it here. We'll call it OSCP Lab Policy. And let's go ahead. Yep, that's fine. Let's go ahead and edit that policy. And here's the configuration. We're going to expand computer config, policies, Windows settings. Nope, I'm sorry. Administrative templates, Windows components. Let's go here to Windows Update, configure automatic updates. We're going to disable. Down here it says if you set this policy to disable, any updates that are available on Windows Update must be downloaded and installed manually. So that's what we want. We do not want it to try and keep calling home. So that's now disabled. And the other one is Defender Antivirus, real-time protection, turn off real-time protection. We're going to enable that. Sounds kind of weird. We're enabling turning off real-time protection. So basically we're turning it off. That's the fundamentals we need there. That way AV doesn't get in the way, because that's not part of the OSCP. That would be part of the OSCE, is bypassing antivirus. So now we've got a group policy applied to the whole domain, so it'll affect everybody. We can close this. Now we're ready to start creating some users. So we'll open up Active Directory users and computers. You saw I did that here. Tools, users and computers. And from in here, let's go ahead and expand out our users folder. And you can see here we have our list of default built-in users and groups. Put our users on top. See, we only have 2 users, and guest is disabled. Administrator is baked in. We're going to add a bunch. We're going to stick with the Lego theme. I have a PowerShell script that I put together to just make my life a little easier, and we're going to stage that back on our Kali box and then transfer it to MS01 and then transfer that over to DC01, since we're kind of having to move our way. Again, we'll put it on Kali, stage it on MS01, and then transfer it over to DC01. So let's go ahead and create this real quick. You can just say, well, let's just do a new tab. Normally I would split vertically, but we don't need to do that here. And this is where we're staging our data. So we already have a share to this. We can just say nano user add.ps1. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy and paste. Problem is I can't copy and paste this directly into DC01, otherwise I would. One of the limits of running through virtual machines on a distant host. So paste clipboard. Because I'm running Kali locally on my machine, I can share clipboard. So here's our list of users we're going to create and passwords, and some of them are in RockU, most of them are not. So some of these will be easily crackable, some of them are not, just like you'd expect on the exam. So save that, and then now we can go back over to MS01. And let's go back to 72, 16, 11. Well, setup, user add. Copy that here. Let's go ahead and share this. And then from there, should be able to copy this on over. So let's go ahead and go up here. 192, nope, this will be 10, 10, 1, 2, 0, 1. And because it's not on the domain yet, we're going to have to do /. Actually, I guess this will be MS01 / let's use the Lucy account. Password 123. Delete me won't work because it doesn't have a password set. And we'll say OK. Sure enough, lets us in. Copy. Paste. And let's open up PowerShell as an admin. Let's go to setup and let's go ahead and run user add. Let's see if I butchered it or if, nope, looks like it worked. Theoretically, it should have added 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 accounts. If we go back here to our users, refresh, we have 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 accounts. Looks good. Now let's go ahead and compromise some of these accounts. And we can do that by, well, first of all, we can make, let's organize this actually. So let's go ahead and do new group. Call one of these service accounts because those definitely exist quite a bit in production. Members, add SVC, IIS, check name, it does exist. Okay, so we've added IIS as a service account, group member. Let's go ahead and create another one, another group, and let's call this IT admins. Because IT admins are always special people. Members, add, let's add Emmett, and let's add, we'll do semicolon, Lord Business. Just do Lord, that should autocomplete, check names, yes. And one other thing is Lord Business is also going to be a member of domain admins. It's going to be our path to compromise here. Alright, now we need, how about an AS rep roastable account? Let's pick on Metalbeard account to make him rep roastable. Just say don't require Kerberos pre-authentication. Yeah, we don't need that. It's backwards compatible. And finally, let's go ahead and let's make a Kerberoastable account. So let's do set AD user. I know capitals don't always matter, but we'll be picky here. SVC, IIS, Let's add a service principal name. Boy, I hope I spelled that right. At open bracket add equals. Now we do our quotes. Let's make it an HTTP service principal name, and then it can be anything we want. I'll just call it web server. You could call it bogus, doesn't matter. OSCP.lab. And then let's close that. What? Service prince? Of course, it's because I can't spell. See, I told you I'd misspell it. Principal. Boom. And now let's double check that with set SPN list service IIS. There it is. We have an SPN. So now this is considered a service account by the fact that it has a service principal name attached, which means we can play curb roasting. At this point, Active Directory is good to go. There's one last thing that we want to make sure and do, and that is to create the password file for the IT admins. So we're going to create a share. We'll call it backups. Let's go ahead and share this folder. Everybody gets share permissions because security permissions are really what matters. We'll go to advanced. We're going to want to disable. Not everybody's going to have access to this because it's going to be a little bit secured, right? So let's disable inheritance. We can convert them to explicit permissions. Say OK. Click on edit, and let's delete or remove the users. But let's add the service accounts group that we made. So service accounts can have modify permissions for a backup share. That would make sense. And then on here, what we need to do is create some type of a password file. We're just going to use a text file with credentials in it and do a password, zip it up in a password protected zip file. But you could just as easily use something else. You could use a password protected Word file or PDF or KeePass database. There's a number of options here. You're going to want to stage this once again though on Kali and then transfer it over. So to do that, let's go ahead and we're gonna leak Emmett's credentials, but we've got some other ones that we can provide just for adding some confusion, a little bit of uncertainty out there. So we'll call this it-users.text. Alright, so we've got some fake accounts in here. Emmett is a real account with the correct password. Let's save that. Now let's zip it. So we'll say zip password, I believe is the flag. We're going to use kind of with the theme, we'll stick with brick. I know this is a password that's in the RockU text file, so again, it should be easily crackable. And we'll call this it-users.zip, and we're going to include the it-users.text file inside of it. Boom, done. And just to test it, we'll say a 7-zip test it-users.zip. Now it say ask for a password. Great. What happens if we put in a bad password? So empty one. You get an error. What happens if we give it the right password? t.brick14. Everything is okay. So it looks good. Let's go ahead and remove it-users.text. That just leaves us with the zip file. And once again, we can go back here to MS01, copy the zip file, put it into our setup share. We're going to delete that. And then we can go back to DC01 and sure enough, we go back to our share 10.10.201. There's our it-users zip file, and we'll drop that into, oops, that should not go into our setup. Cut. We want to put that in backups. There it is, itusers.zip. We can go ahead and do show file name extensions. Okay, so now DC01 is good to go. It has a path to compromise, which is that share. And if we want, we can go ahead and go C drive setup. We do not need that anymore, so let's go ahead and delete that as well. And make sure recycle bin is empty. Alright, DC01 is all set. Now we're ready to join the machines to the domain. Alright, now that we've got MS01 and DC01, let's go ahead and do MS02. Keep this thing rolling. So create OSCP-MS02, Windows 10, SSD, 2 CPUs, thin provisioned hard drive, 4 gigs, OSCP inside network, but change the network adapter and data store ISO file for me, and we're going to pick Windows 10, different build this time. Finish. There's MS02. Let's kick it off. Let's get this full screen. Same thing, skip ahead if you think you remember how to install Windows 10, otherwise watch along. Next, install. I don't have a key. Windows 10 Pro. I agree to your silly terms. I do a custom install and I say take all the hard drive space. And go ahead and let it push the files, expand them, and install. We'll come back after it reboots and is asking us for the next step. Okay, once again, we're in the US. US keyboard, skip additional layouts. I don't have internet. Limited setup. Delete me. No password. No on everything. Thank you for asking. Alright, we made it to the desktop. Let's go ahead and change the computer name. MS02. And let's install our VMware tools. Next, install. And sure enough, finish. And let's change our display 150%. And yes, we'll go ahead and reboot because we're overachievers. And we're back. Let's go ahead and set our IP settings. So change adapter options, right click, properties, disable v6, modify v4, 10.10.1.202/24, and DNS is 10.10.1.200. Good old DC01. And we can confirm that shortly. And let's go ahead and also change a couple of settings here. Once again, let's get rid of the screen and power savers. And let's also turn off tamper protection, which on this build might already be disabled. Sure enough, it is. Okay. So that is all set. At this point, we're ready to join this to the domain. So let's go ahead and right click, properties, change settings, change domain, and in this case we'll say OSCP.lab. Okay, prompts for give me some admin credentials to join you. We'll use our administrator and brickmaster to join this to the domain. Welcome to the domain. And restart. Okay, and we're back. I'll go ahead and log back in as delete me. So at this point what we need is the auto logon. So we should be able to go to MS01, we can go by DNS name now. No permission, of course, because we have blank password. So to get around that, let's use the Lucy account. So let's do cmd netuse x (192). Actually, we can just say MS01 / setup. It doesn't like that. Believe, yep, there it is. So we can do /user MS01 Lucy. Password 123. There we go, completed successfully. So now, oh, I guess it's not going to show up here because we did that as Lucy. So we can do dir x, and we can say copy x auto logon to, actually we need a place to put it. Yep, there it showed up, X drive, setup. Sure enough, there it is. Double click, yes, we agree. We want it to auto log on as Lord Business. And part of the OSCP.lab domain. And what was his password? Oh yes, his password was Taco Tuesday. See if that worked. Nope, that was not right. Okay, try that again. Taco Tuesday. Does not like that. I like that one though. Okay, third time's the charm. So now that should auto log on as Lord Business, who actually happens to be a domain admin, so he'll have full admin privileges on here as well. And one other thing we want to do to make this vulnerable is, actually no, we'll do it after it reboots. So we need to add IT admins as local administrators. So let's go ahead and reboot. Alright, we're logged on as Lord Business. Let's go ahead and increase our screen resolution. Well, our scale 150. And we also need to add, we'll go here to manage the PC, and then we're going to need to add the IT, local users. So we're going to go to the local groups, open up local administrators. We're going to add, it's already set to OSCP.lab, the IT admins group. Check names, boom. Okay. So now IT admins will also be able to compromise, in this case, the machine, MS02. At this point, we're ready to move back to joining MS01 to the domain and getting it established. So I think the last thing we need to do to clean this up is right click and go to Properties, Advanced System Settings, and User Profiles. Click on Settings, and let's delete me. We do not need that account anymore, or that profile. This just deletes the profile data. And then after that, we can actually go right back to Manage, Local Users and Groups, and delete me. Yes. Okay. So now if we go to the C drive, users, there is no delete me profile, there is no delete me account, it is gone. Oh, one thing, let's go back actually. One thing we need to do is on the C drive, back on here, setup, we need to enable a share, and this will be something we could take advantage of later. When we exploit this, we want to be able to leverage SMB. So let's go and just share the setup folder. Permissions can be everyone, that's fine, or full for everyone. There we go, that's all we needed to do. So now we actually have a share, and the firewall will enable that as well. All set, MS02 is ready to go. And we're back on MS01. We're looking at, let's clean up and delete our IT users zip file. That should not be on MS01 at all. Let's go ahead, let's see, we are currently still logging on as the local delete me account. So at this point, let's go ahead and join this to the domain. So let's say right click Properties, Advanced System Settings, Computer Name, Change Domain, OSCP.lab. Of course. So if you have a general network error, for the most part, it just means we need to restart. So let's go ahead and restart. Try that again when it comes back up. Alright, so now we have gotten it rebooted. Still logged on as delete me. Let's go ahead and try changing our name. So right click, Properties, Change Settings, Change Domain, OSCP.lab, and sure enough it prompts us for credentials. So Domain Administrator and good old Brickmaster. Yes, lets us on. Okay, and whoopsie, restart now. And we're back. Let's go ahead and log on once more as delete me, because we're not done with delete me yet. Alright, so we're logged on as delete me. We are joined to the domain. But there's a couple things we have left to do. One, well, first of all, let's go ahead and leave some breadcrumbs. So if we go to the C drive and users, we'll notice there's just the good old delete me account. We need to create some breadcrumbs for lateral movement. For that, we're going to use good old PowerShell. So I like using PowerShell history sometimes. I always look for it. It's a great wealth of information if you can find something in a CTF. So here, let's go ahead and run this as admin. Actually, I guess it didn't really matter, because what we're going to do, you don't have to run it as admin. We're going to say run as /user OSCP /wild style. What are we going to run? PowerShell. Prompts us for credentials. It's the awesome 24 bang password. And sure enough, here we opened up PowerShell running as wild style. Who am I? wild style. Now, let's go ahead, do a quick ipconfig. Let's say host name. Now, let's leave a breadcrumb. So let's say we want to PS remote or do a PS session into another box, right? For example, we could do password equals convert to secure string. Here's our password. And as plain text, enforce please. Great. Now let's create a cred variable. That's going to be a new object. Oh, get out of my way. What kind of object is it? It's going to be a system management automation PS credential. Who is it? It's wild style. Is that a DJ? And password. Oops, pass for our variable. That looks good. Yep. And then enter. This will not work, but we're just using it as the example breadcrumb. So computer, we're going to try and PS session into a non-existent machine called MS03 using our credentials. And sure enough, failed. When RM cannot process the request, it verify that the computer exists on the network and that the name is spelled correctly. Cool. That's it. Exit. We now have breadcrumbs. So if we look at users, sure enough, there's wild style. And if we go to, let's just go into wild style. Derby star.text. There it is. And there it is. That looks good to me. I guess one thing we could change is we can get rid of that. Save it. There we go. All right. Okay, now we need to start leaving some breadcrumbs. To do this, though, we're going to need to enable the local administrator account. Whoops. So let's right-click, manage, because we want to get the profile created. Local users, we're going to go ahead and enable the local administrator account. Okay, so we're gonna have to right click and say set password first. I'm just gonna set it to good old password 123 super top secret. And now let's go ahead and re-enable it so we can use that to create some breadcrumbs and do some cleanup. The other thing we're going to do, since we have Lucy there, we are ready to do auto logon. So let's go ahead and go to setup, run auto logon. Yes. As Lucy, the domain is MS01 because it's a local account. Use our password 123. Yes. Okay, so now we'll auto log on as Lucy when we reboot. But we have our local administrator. So let's go ahead and sign out and log on as the local administrator. So dot backslash, you'll see changes it to MS01 administrator, and the reason for this is I don't want it to cache the domain admin credentials, so I want to be able to do this with the local admin. Okay, same as usual. No, 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 no. And display. For everyone's sake, let's go back to 150. Okay, now at this point, we are logged on as the local admin. Go to C drive, users. Sure enough, there's an administrator account. Great. So now we can start dropping in our proofs and cleaning up everything. So let's go ahead and reboot this machine, because we need to clear out the cache so we can delete the delete me profile and user. Okay, and now we're logged on as Lucy. Same thing, display settings, 150%. Okay, this is just a limited local user, so immediately we're going to want to switch users. Go back to our /administrator local admin account. And now we're going to go ahead and delete the delete me account and create our local.txt and proof.txt files. So right click, properties, advanced system settings, user profiles, delete me. And then right click, manage, local users, delete me. Alright. And then at this point we're ready to create some loot. So if we go back to our Kali box, there's a relatively easy way to do this. So let's go ahead and clear the screen. So echo random. Every time you do an echo on random, it will generate a new number. So let's echo that into MD5 sum, and that'll give us a number. Now what's funny is if we do this again, it'll give us the same thing because it gives it the same number. You have to actually say echo random again for it to change the number and give you a new MD5 sum. So kind of funny, kind of weird, but a little quirky. So what we're going to do is take this one, copy, echo. We're going to echo that into local.txt. Echo, paste selection, proof.txt. Let's go ahead and grab both of those. So from here, actually, you know what, let's just generate them all. Let's go ahead and generate all of them. So we'll just do echo random again, MD5 that, and echo random again, MD5 that. So we'll grab this one, echo, into proof2.txt. Well, how about, yeah, proof2.txt, and echo proof3.txt. So you can see we've got 3 proofs and 1 local. And if we let's go ahead and cat star.text. Sure enough, we can see all 4 are different. So we go back to MS01 as the local admin. Go back here to our setup. Let's grab all 4 of these, copy them over. So, well, first let's look at the file name extensions. Local.txt, that can go under Lucy's profile, go under her desktop, and then proof.txt can go to the admin desktop. That's why we want that local administrator. Proof.2 and proof.3 are going to go to MS02 and DC01. So to do that, let's go ahead. MS02. We're logged on as Lord Business, who is a domain admin. So let's go ahead. I can do this in command prompt. Netuse don't know why I used netuse. It should have been dir. Oh, really? Yeah, okay. Oh, did we stop sharing? Let's take a look here. Still shared with everyone. A little odd. I guess just for giggles, we can stop this share and do it again. There we go. That was weird. So now we can just say copy MS01 setup proof 2 to desktop. And let's go ahead and rename it to just proof. Bingo. All set there. So MS02 is good to go. Let's go back over to DC01. And on here, similarly, you can go up here, MS01, grab proof 3, copy it to the desktop, and get rid of 3. We now have loot on all of our machines. So at this point, we are ready to clean up any remnants on MS01. I believe MS02 is good to go. So let's go ahead and verify. Delete me profile still there. Let's make sure and get rid of that. So it should have done that already. Let's go ahead and right click, hold shift, hit delete. It does a permanent delete. Setup is good. So the last thing we should do is go ahead and go back to computer management, and let's disable the administrator account. We don't need that anymore. and reboot. Alright, MS01's rebooted. We are logged on as Lucy. Looks like this is good to go. So at this point, the last thing that we have to do is clean up our Kali box. We've got all these goodies sitting here. You can either basically throw this away and just deploy a new image when you're ready to practice the lab, or easy way to do it is, since I created all this in one folder, just back off to the desktop, remove, let's do clear, remove RF, AD setup, boom, it's gone. And let's go ahead and say mousepad. You can also use nano, but I'm using mousepad and you'll see why here. .zsh history. Oh, because we haven't closed. Okay, so watch this. So first it's, whoops, empty. There's a reason. It's because it's in use by this. So once we close that and close that, and we'll even close our VPN. Oh, and we'll close, actually, you know what, let's close Firefox as well. And then let's open Firefox back up. History, clear recent history, clear everything. Boom. And then mousepad, you can click open here. And the intention was, actually we'll just go back. Mousepad, ZSH history. Now you'll see it's got all this goody stuff in here. We want to delete all of that. So delete, save, close. Oh, what I should have done was ampersand. Then it opens it up in a separate process. You can close this and it wouldn't, okay, well, it shouldn't have killed mousepad. Either way, mousepad, open the ZSH history, delete it, save it, good to go. Now there's no history there. So at this point, you're cleaned up, you're ready to go, and go ahead and reboot Kali and practice the lab. Have fun.